Jack rides his bike and arrives at a sinkhole, so he ties his rope to his bike and goes down. And as he checks the place for traps, he falls into one and gets pulled. But Jack gets himself out of it, runs to escape, and tries to pull himself out using the rope he tied to his bike. But the rope is shot while Jack is on his way back up. In a dream, Jack finds himself in New York before the war. He sees a mysterious lady, and the two share a smile. Jack recognizes her, though they've never met. Having seen this dream quite often, Jack thinks it's a memory rather than a dream. Jack awakes with Victoria by his side. It's 2077, and it's been 60 years since aliens called the Scavengers destroyed the moon of the Earth, resulting in earthquakes and tsunamis. Scavengers then invaded the Earth, but humans killed them with their nukes, winning the war. However, the use of the nukes made the Earth contaminated and inhabitable, forcing all of humanity to immigrate to Titan, one of the moons of the planet Saturn. Before the immigration, humans built the Tet, a space station monitoring the Earth, for which Jack and Victoria work to keep out the scavengers who destroy Tet's drones. Jack and Victoria are the only humans left on Earth, and in 2 weeks they'll join the other humans on Titan. Jack suits up, arms himself, and hops on his plane to do his daily job of fixing drones, and his code name is Tech 49, while Victoria remains home to monitor the mission and report to Tet. Spotting 2 offline drones on the radar, Victoria reports to Sally, her and Jack's superior in Tet. Victoria tells Jack about the 2 drones' whereabouts, so he flies to the first drone and successfully fixes it. A dog approaches and Jack scares it off, given that the drone only recognizes him and kills any other being it doesn't. The drone is now on. As it flies, it recognizes Jack, scans the place for scavengers, and flies away. 1 drone is down, and it's time to fix the other, so Jack takes out a bike from his plane and drives to the drone's location. Arriving there, Jack checks the place for scavengers and finds the drone in a sinkhole, so he ties a rope to his bike and goes down there, not knowing about a scavenger watching him from a mile away. Going down the sinkhole, Jack checks the place, but he steps on the scavenger's trap and gets pulled by a rope. Jack cuts it and starts shooting at the scavengers sneaking around. Eventually, Jack runs and tries to escape, but the rope tied to his bike is shot, causing Jack to fall on his back and lose his rifle. Trapped, Jack tries to fight off the scavengers with his pistol before a drone comes to his rescue and kills all of the scavengers in a blink. Following that, Jack identifies himself to the drone as Tech 49 to make sure it doesn't kill him, and the drone recognizes him and flies away. Jack then picks up a poetry book before he climbs his way back up, only to find his bike stolen. Jack comes back home and repairs a drone, but stops to go through the poetry book he picked earlier from the sinkhole and comes across a line talking about death. And before he reads further, Victoria interrupts and tells him it is dinner time. Jack gives Victoria some flowers, but Victoria immediately gets rid of them and tells Jack they are full of toxins. At dinner, Jack talks about what happened in the sinkhole and starts thinking the scavengers weren't trying to kill him. It sounded like they wanted him alive. Later, Jack and Victoria awake to find a massive explosion. Jack flies his plane to check it out, and it turns out scavengers blew up a tower. Jack then spots a rogue signal on his radar and decides to see where it's coming from. To Jack's amazement, the rogue signal is coming from the Empire State Building he sees in his dream. Going inside, Jack finds a monkey doll and then a device sending the signal. Jack has Victoria decrypt the signal, and it turns out the scavengers are sending it outside the planet. Jack has Victoria check the radar if there's anyone around, in case it is a trap, but inexplicably no one is around, so Jack cuts the wire off, thereby blocking the signal. Jack tells Victoria he wants to do a parameter check, but hangs up on her and goes to a house in the middle of the forest, where he puts the poetry book he took from the sinkhole and the monkey doll he took from the Empire State Building. After playing music to relax and unwind, Jack takes a nap and again dreams about the Empire State Building and the mysterious woman once again. Jack immediately snaps awake to find a ship going down. Jack immediately contacts Victoria. When he arrives at the site and sees the ship, he recognizes the ship as one of Tet's. Victoria warns him against landing there, fearing that there might be some scavengers lying in wait for him. Jack doesn't listen to her and lands there to find human beings in hibernation pods, and one of them is the mysterious woman he sees in his recurring dream. A drone comes and kills the survivors. Before it can kill the woman, Jack stops it and identifies himself as Tech 49. The drone tries to kill the woman again, but Jack starts shooting at it, worrying Victoria, who's monitoring what's going on. Jack tells it to go away multiple times, and it does. Jack then takes the woman in the pod to his plane, not knowing there's a scavenger watching him. Arriving home with the pod, Jack tells Victoria to open the door, which she reluctantly does. Victoria tells him she needs to report the sleeping lady to Sally, but Jack tells her no, since the Tet drone killed the other human survivors in the pods. The mysterious woman snaps awake and vomits. As she fades back to unconsciousness, she recognizes Jack and calls him by his name, which Jack and Victoria find a little bit weird. After Victoria nurses her back to life, the woman wakes up and introduces herself as Julia. Victoria tells her about how her ship crashed and the deaths of her crew members. Victoria also tells her she's been asleep in the pod for 60 years. Hearing this, Julia panics, so Victoria calms her down and tries to inject her, but Julia's paranoia kicks in and warns Victoria not to touch her. The three have dinner, and Julia remembers she has to get her flight recorder from the ship to see what happened. Victoria tells her a lot has changed in 60 years. Jack then tells her about the war with aliens, the destruction of Earth, the immigration of humanity to Titan, and what he and Victoria are doing on Earth for Tet. Victoria then holds Jack's hand, and Julia chuckles in amusement as she leaves the table. Following their dinner, Victoria tells Jack she is suspicious of Julia, not knowing who or what she is, so she decides to tell Sally about Julia and send her to Tet first thing in the morning. Little do Jack and Victoria know that a scavenger is watching their house using his binoculars. The next morning, Jack talks to Julia and tells her she's going to Tet, but Julia again insists she wants to get her flight recorder to see what happened. Behind Victoria's back, Jack takes Julia back to the site where her ship crashed. As soon as Julia finds her flight recorder, a group of scavengers surround them. Victoria controls Jack's plane and makes it fly away, while a scavenger knocks out Jack and kidnaps him along with Julia, making Victoria worried sick. Later, Victoria reports to Sally, tells her she lost contact with Jack, and requests to have a drone find where he is. Meanwhile, Jack wakes up to find himself tied up and an old man smoking a cigar named Malcolm, who tells Jack he's been watching him the whole time. Jack tells him he's not spilling the beans about anything because his memory has been wiped for the security of the mission. Malcolm asks Jack whether he really met a scavenger and then has his people turn the lights on, shocking Jack, who realizes and sees that scavengers are humans, not aliens like he and Victoria thought. Malcolm then tells Jack that Tet drones work for aliens and are designed to kill humans like his men, and like those people Jack found earlier in the pods. Therefore, Malcolm is planning to destroy the Tet with a nuclear bomb he took from a NASA ship called Odyssey and use a Tet drone they managed to hijack, sneak the bomb inside it, and blow up the Tet. However, the Tet drone will kill Malcolm and his men once turned on. Therefore, Malcolm wants Jack to reprogram it so it can recognize them and they can use it to take the nuclear bomb to the Tet and destroy it, to which Jack says no, reasoning there are people up in the Tet itself. Malcolm's second-in-command, Sykes, tells Jack to program it, but Jack still says no. Sykes shoots him and threatens to kill Julia if Jack doesn't comply. However, they are interrupted after their alarm sounds. A Tet drone managed to track Jack's whereabouts. As it scans the area for scavengers, they try to take it down with snipers, but it kills two of them and is killed afterward by Sykes. Jack urges Malcolm to let him and Julia go because many drones will be sent to find Jack. Malcolm does so and urges Jack to go to the radiation zone he's not allowed to go to and see the truth about Tet for himself. Jack and Julia go to the Empire State Building. Jack keeps seeing in his dreams. After Jack sends a signal to Victoria, telling her he's safe, Victoria sighs in relief and sends Jack's plane to track him and bring him back. Meanwhile, Jack asks Julia who she is and what her mission was in space. It turns out that Julia was sent on a mission to Titan, but they were captured by an alien object, which Julia thinks was the Tet. Julia also tells Jack she's his wife and reminds him of their memories together on the Empire State Building 60 years ago, when Jack proposed to her, which explains Jack's recurring dreams. Julia then shows him the ring Jack brought her at that time. Jack recalls the full memory of 60 years ago when he met Julia by the Empire State Building. Jack and Julia hold hands and go inside. As they go to the roof, a little girl was seen carrying the same monkey doll that Jack found earlier. Jack then proposes, and Julia says yes. The scene shifts back to the present where Jack is hugging Julia. Jack's plane arrives, and Victoria sees Jack and Julia holding hands through the plane's camera. Heartbroken about Jack cheating on her, Victoria tears up. Jack returns home with Julia and tells the heartbroken Victoria to open the door, but Victoria says no and tells Sally about Julia's impeding Jack's job as a technician, so Jack's unfit for service. The door opens on its own and Jack begs Victoria to listen, but Victoria says no. A drone shows up and kills Victoria, but before it can kill Jack, Julia destroys it using Jack's plane. Jack then confronts Sally about killing Victoria. Sally robotically replies that accidents happen, and then she orders Jack to bring Julia with him to the Tet so she can assign him a new mission. Jack realizes Tet and Sally are not who he thought they were, so he and Julia take the plane, and then they are pursued by 3 drones. Jack leads them to a canyon where he takes cover and then traps all 3 of them, destroying the first 2. As Jack tries to get rid of the third, he finds himself about to crash, but miraculously escapes through a narrow opening, losing the last drone to fly afterward to the radiation zone where Malcolm told him to go to seek the truth earlier. Everything seemed fine until the drone caught up to him and hit his plane, causing it to break down mid-flight. Before the drone can hit them once more, Jack manages to destroy it in time and parachutes into the radiation zone. Spotting another smoke coming up from the distance, Jack runs to check it out. A plane just like his lands there. Jack spots a man coming out to repair the drone he just destroyed. Jack yells at him to stop, but to Jack's surprise, that man turns out to be a clone of his, only with the code name Tech-52, unlike the main character, Jack, whose code name is Tech-49. The two hold each other at gunpoint, but Tech-49 drops his weapon and tries to get Tech-52 to shut down the drone before it kills him or Julia, but Tech-52 refuses to listen and gets distracted seeing Julia, as he's troubled by recurring dreams about her. With Tech-52's guard down, Tech-49 disarms him, and the two start fighting, accidentally shooting Julia in the process. Eventually, Tech-49 overpowers Tech-52, chokes him, and puts him to sleep. The drone then is turned on, but before it can shoot Jack Tech-49, he manages to turn it off just in time. Just then, Jack sees that Julia's been shot, so he ties up the unconscious Tech-52, takes his plane, and flies to Tech-52's home. There, he finds out that Tech-52 lives the same life as him. Seeing his picture with Victoria, Jack then steals the first med kit and encounters a clone of Victoria, Tech-52's partner. Jack pretends to be Tech-52, fooling Victoria, and then flies back to the radiation zone to save Julia in time. Jack then takes her to the house in the forest, where they talk about their old memories. After deciding to help the scavengers, Jack meets up with them to help them carry out their plans to destroy the Tet. As Jack reprograms the Tet drone, Malcolm tells the truth about Tet, an alien agency that occupied the Earth 60 years ago by sending an army of thousands of aliens who were clones of the real Jack and Victoria. Then they started sending drones to kill any surviving human being. After Jack reprograms the drone, the scavengers decide to put their plan into action and destroy Tet. Just then, 3 Tet drones track down Jack and attack the scavengers, killing many of them, but eventually the Tet drones are destroyed. Jack goes to Malcolm, who tells him to send the drone to Tet, but unfortunately, Jack tells him it got destroyed while fighting the 3 drones, so Jack decides to take the nuclear bomb to Tet by himself and make the sacrifice, and Julia decides to go with him. Therefore, he puts her in a hibernation pod and takes her to his plane. On his way to Tet, Jack plays Julia's flight recorder, where he finds out that 60 years ago, he used to be an astronaut working for NASA, riding the Odyssey ship along with Victoria on his side, and with Julia and the rest of the crew in hibernation pods. Encountering the Tet in space, Jack and Victoria lost contact with Sally, who was their commander at NASA. Eventually, Jack had to separate half of the ship, saving Julia and the others from Tet, while he and Victoria got captured and cloned later on to do Tet's bidding on Earth. Back to the present, Jack arrives at Tet, which opens its door for him. Once inside, Jack finds tons of clones looking like him and Victoria. After meeting Sally, who turns out to be a triangular structure with the real Sally's voice, Jack takes out the hibernation pod and opens it, only for Malcolm to come out. As for Julia, her pod opens, and she finds herself in the forest house. Jack and Malcolm detonate the nuclear bomb, destroying Tet and sacrificing themselves in the process, thereby saving the Earth from the alien threat. 3 years later, Julia is seen with Jack's 3-year-old daughter playing with the monkey doll. Sykes and the rest of the surviving scavengers show up along with Jack Tech 52, who shares a warm and loving smile with Julia.